dramas that are out there. Like I know The Pitt's on HBO, but The Pitt is just everything to everyone right now.
That is phenomenal. That is on my list to watch. I'm waiting for it's going to be a couple weeks only because there's so many other shows that are still on, but a bunch of them are going to be wrapping up within the next couple weeks. And then we're going to go into kind of like that summer slump where we're in between. We're getting like a lot of the game shows and the reality shows that are going to be coming out kind of to fill those months. But also, if you're listening to our coverage of the cast of to The Last of Us, you've heard my voice already. I am pulling double duty starting now for the next 5 weeks, I believe, 4 or 5 weeks. So if you get sick of my voice, I don't apologize for it. I brought it on myself, and I'm going to stick with it. But just because
for you, Ben, good for you. Own that voice. Own that voice.
But proud. Just because not everybody is watching Dead City, because let's be honest, Negan is a very polarizing character. I know people
have said it. I don't see it, but okay, I guess. I'm kidding, folks. I get it. I know.
I know people who did not give Dead City a chance because they just do not like the character of Negan.
I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand that.
I'm the same way. Look, he's a complex character, to say the least. And I feel like teaming him up or tying him with, and we'll get into more of this as we go into the Dead City season 1 recap, pairing him up with Maggie not only made him more of a complex character, but it made Maggie more of a complex character.
What it is doing, what Dead City's doing with Maggie Green Ree is finally giving her character the complexity to cook. That they've dabbled with it, they've hinted at it, but they haven't really. Oh man, I kind of want to get right into it, but like this is finally a chance for her to shine. So I'm gonna try and withhold myself a little bit till we can get into it. But I love it.
Okay, so I mean, before we get into it, obviously, this is your first bit on any Podcastica podcast. So I know you because you have joined me on my Wilhelm podcast a number of times already. You have since launched your own podcast because of that, which is doing really, really well. But I want Podcastica listeners to kind of know you for a little bit. So I thought maybe we'd spend a couple minutes just for you to introduce yourself and tell the Podcastica listeners a little bit about you so that they kind of welcome you in as we continue with this.
Love it. I'm here for it. Thank you so much. Hey guys, I'm Alex. I'm a Cancer. No. So as Ben alluded to, I am one of two hosts of my own podcast, the Quit Chasing podcast, where we talk Philadelphia Phillies baseball. But really, we just talk a whole lot of pop culture and life. It's always a good time. I love television. I love movies. I love anything that gets me out of this dystopian world that we're currently living in. So any chance to detach from reality, I'm here for. Like Ben alluded to, I've guested on the Revisited podcast talking about Ted Lasso. I'm excited for future endeavors with The Good Place. So I love to consume whatever's out there. I love to think of it critically. And when I first found the Podcastica family through the Walking Dead cast at the time, it was great because I finally found other people like me that looked at television academically and really enjoyed breaking down the intent of the writers, the directors, the actors and actresses, the talent, and just looking at it as more than just story, but also all the pieces that go into the artistry that is making television.
Hey, you know what? That's a really good introduction of yourself. Like that's
boom.
I don't want to say impressed because I've been impressed with you since the start, but I don't know what to say. I hope the listeners take that in. That's more what I hope for.
I was very anti-podcast, to be honest, for the longest time. I don't know why. Maybe just because I'm a stubborn millennial that had no good reason. But I eschewed it. And then the pandemic happened. I ran out of content. Fake Doctors, Real Friends with Zach Braff and Donald Faison took off, and I started listening. And I found Jason, and it just, boom, here I am. And look at this. Year later. Boom.
Yeah, I mean, you've unfairly credited me for your journey into becoming a podcaster yourself. I don't think I deserve that credit at all. I think eventually you would have found your way there regardless. But it's appreciated. And I'm super stoked that you have become a podcaster yourself. And now you're joining in this direct way the Podcastica family, which is kind of cool.
It's only been a lifelong dream of mine for 2 years, but it's been a lifelong dream of mine to help co-host one of these shows. So I'm super excited to be here. Like having my own show. Don't tell Danny. It's awesome. I love it. It's the best. But this is the major leagues right here. This is why I started this journey. All right.
Fair enough. Alex and I will not be the only two people that you hear across this journey. Just like last year with season 1, I am going to be bringing on some guest hosts. We are going to be bringing on some guest hosts as we continue on. Unlike season 1, where we only had 6 episodes, we actually get 8 episodes this year. So we're getting 2 extra episodes to talk about it. We've got 5 or 6 people lined up. I've already got people penciled in for different episodes as we go through some familiar voices from last year and some new ones. So I'm really excited about that. A couple of them I've never podcasted with before. So we'll see how that dynamic works, but I'm fully confident it's going to be dynamic, and that's really all that matters. Also, as I mentioned, because I am pulling double duty right now, starting now, Dead City coverage will be running congruent with The Last of Us coverage. We're going to do feedback a little differently for the Dead City coverage. Last of Us right now has the new episodes that come out on Tuesday, and then the feedback episodes happened last week. So we're not going to do a separate feedback episode for Dead City. Instead, what we're going to do, and it's kind of going to affect the format of this podcast purely just for Dead City, not for anything else, is that next week we're going to talk about the season premiere of the show. And then you're going to send in your feedback, and we are going to start episode 2, recapping your feedback from episode 1 before we go into the discussion of episode 2.
I love that. That is so smart.
Yeah. So we'll still get your feedback in. You'll have almost a week to get it in doing it this way, which gives you guys plenty of time to get your feedback in. And so, yeah, so next week, we'll talk all about the season premiere, and then the following week, we'll talk about the feedback from the season premiere, and then go into our discussion of episode 2. So if you have any questions or don't understand what we're talking about, just email us through podcastica.com, and we'll try and explain it a little bit better.
And in case you're worried, yes, I am sad I do not get a live Steving this week.
Oh,
I can't wait. I'm so
I have a voicemail from Steve for this week.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
He sent us a short, 20-second voicemail to kind of wish us luck.
Oh, thank God. That is music to my ears. If I don't hear Steve at least once a week, I get sad.
So I will play that a little bit later once we go through our season 1 recap and our season 2 predictions. We'll play that towards the end. Yes. But it was really nice because Jason forwarded it to me. I was like, wait, we're already getting feedback for Dead City? And then I saw who it was from, and I was like, yes, all right.
The best.
Steve is joining us even for the recap. I love it.
What a gent.
So, but let's dive into the season 1 recap. You and I both just recently did rewatches of season 1, and I want to kind of, just for anybody who's kind of gearing up for season 2 like we are, I kind of want to just discuss maybe some of the key players we need to know going into this next season, some of the key moments that have happened, storylines and things like that that are going to continue on into season 2. And then even touch on some of our favorite moments from season 1 as well, since you weren't part of the season 1 coverage. And it was actually kind of fun going back and rewatching it. I'm not going to lie.
It was a little bit. And honestly, in preparation for this, I listened to the old podcast that you guys did just to kind of remember what you guys were saying about it to help me. And it's just, it was fantastic. So it was a fun little exercise.
There's a couple things I noticed upon this rewatch too that I was like, did we talk about that last year?
Absolutely.
I don't remember if we talked about that last year.
I know. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to go through it.
So, all right, I'll let you kick things off then. You were kind of ready to roll with some of the stuff talking about Maggie's character and how much more of a dynamic character she's becoming because of this pair up with Negan. So if you want to just roll right with that, I say go for it.
All right, fair enough. So when it comes all right, Maggie's character, in a lot of ways, has kind of always found ways to frustrate me. And I know that you're a big Lauren Cohen fan.
I love me my Lauren Cohen.
Here's the deal, okay? I fell out of love with Lauren Cohen when I was watching, or Lauren Cohen rather, when I was watching Chuck, and she was Vivian Volkov, and she broke Chuck's heart, and it broke my heart. So
that's fair.
I've always been a little off center from her, but I've since come around. It's okay. However, there were parts of Maggie I always kind of fought with her stubbornness, her bullheadedness when she wanted to kill Rick after he kept Negan alive. Like that lasted all of 20 seconds. But I had issues with the Maggie character. The accent always made me laugh. It reminds me of James Vanderbeek in Varsity Blues. I don't want your life. A little bit.
Well, what cracks me up the most about her accent is because everybody thinks she's British putting on an American accent, but she's actually an American putting on a British accent, putting on an American accent.
It's fantastic. It's like
she's from New Jersey. Right. She was born in New Jersey.
Which is just the best people are, from what I understand.
Hey, I'm from New Jersey.
I know. I said the best people.
I know you were pointing at me, but
it was a compliment.
But for the listeners, they couldn't see that.
All right, that's true. All right, Ben's from New Jersey. He's good people. So, anyways, but what I really like about this show is, and I'm sure it upset and rankled some folks, but it really is trying to reframe it as Maggie is someone that seems to be unhingedly going at her desired plan at all costs. Damn, like caution to the wind, get it done. And the way that she's keeping things from Ginny and Negan shows kind of her duplicitousness, and it's painting her in a less than altruistic light, which I think is really, really important for where this show needs to go. And I want to know kind of what you thought rewatching at this time of the Maggie we see now versus the Maggie we always knew in Walking Dead proper.
So, I mean, it's interesting that you throw it to me as well, because in rewatching it, I did notice a little bit more, and I actually gained a little bit more. I noticed more of the complexity of Maggie's character upon the second rewatch than I did the first one, because so I feel like even before I go into this, we have to do a quick recap of the summary of what happens in the season.
That's a great point.
And just to make it quick, a quick summary, we see that Maggie is in search for Negan because her son has been kidnapped. She needs Negan's help to get over to the city to rescue her son. She wants Negan's help because Negan is aware of the person, the Croat, who is the gentleman who, I say gentleman, he's not a gentleman. The person that kidnapped her son. And then throughout the course of it, we see events happen. A biodiesel happens to come into play, which I think is fucking genius.
We'll get into the science, I'm sure, but
yeah,
I love it.
But it leads me to the reveal that happens by the end, and that is the fact that the Croat did not kidnap her son for any particular reason. It was all part of the plan with that the Croat wanted Negan to come to the city, and Maggie was the one that was to bring him there. And in order to do that, so Maggie wasn't bringing Negan with her to rescue her son. Maggie was bringing Negan because that's what the Croat wanted.
It was a trade-off.
It was a trade-off.
Negan for Herschel.
But that moment where you realize that, because you don't realize that throughout the entire season until the last so I think it's the second to last episode is when you find out.
Right.
Is when that reveal happens. But knowing it ahead of time going into the rewatch, because it took me a minute. It took me till about episode 3 of the rewatch where I was like, wait a minute. I'm remembering now that this is all part of the plan. Negan was supposed, like, this was a trade-off for Negan to get Negan.
What felt kind of like a little bit of shoddy writing, perhaps at first, of that's so weird. Maggie's in this entire community full of individuals that would gladly take up arms. Why is it that Negan is the only one that she can take into the city to rescue her son back? Once you watch it with the perspective of, oh, this isn't a rescue mission, this is a hostage transfer, it makes a whole lot more sense as to what Maggie's plan was all along and why at times it was a lot more haphazard than we're used to seeing from the Walking Dead gang.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, and kind of like how you mentioned the shoddy writing, they do throw that little caveat in there that, oh, she wants Negan to go because Negan is familiar with the Croat.
Right.
She heard the whistle from the Croat, and that reminded her of Negan. Figured they knew each other. I'll take Negan with me.
He owes me forever.
Exactly.
Yep.
And okay, it's believable. And especially when you're going into this complete unknown, which one of the main things that drew me into Dead City, and I talked about this during the season 1 coverage, is one, I'm a fan of Negan as a character. I love complex characters. I really love complex characters. Ben Linus from Lost, one of the most complex characters that has ever been on television. He is my favorite character on that show. Negan is another complex character. And it drew me in because of Negan. It drew me in because of obviously Lauren Cohan, continuing the story as Maggie, and the environment of New York City. I love New York City. And to get to see a ravaged New York City post-apocalypse, I'm all about that.
It was kind of like seeing Lincoln Financial Field for me in The Ones Who Live, even if it was ravaged by bombs. Just seeing where the Philadelphia Eagles play, go Birds, was fantastic. But you bring up an interesting kind of segue. Do you want to get into the Negan of it all?
Well, I wanted to go back to real quick about the Maggie aspect of it. Because you asked me what I thought about this different Maggie. And I was already a fan of Maggie's character, but because, like I said, I'm a fan of complex characters, the fact of teaming her up with Negan made her more complex. We not only saw Maggie struggle with having to deal with partnering with Negan, something she did not want to do. It absolutely disgusted her. But by the end of this series, and I talked about this during our coverage of it last year, these two characters were so magnetic in the sense that Maggie brought when they were polar opposites teaming up, they pulled each other close to the center. Negan became softer and more caring and concerned, especially with, what's her name? Ginny, especially with Ginny and having to care for her and having heard that he sent Anna and his kid away and abandoned them, but took up Ginny after killing her father. But we've also got Maggie, who was against anything that Negan did, but was starting they drew towards each other, and they became more similar than either one of them wanted to admit. It's why I think that final scene in that finale with the split screen of the two of them looking up half and half is brilliant.
I would agree. And it also shows how, man, when they fight together, they are pretty damned unstoppable. Of all the TV shows that have recently come out and the crazy pairings that just so happen to work, I would equate Maggie and Negan to Daredevil and Punisher. When they team up, they can do anything. One is a little bit more gruesome, but they can both get shit done.
That's a good comparison because they both do what needs to be done, but in two completely different ways.
Very different codes.
And they're not happy about each other's code.
Absolutely.
But they'll still work together.
Because they know that what they're fighting for is right. It's just the methodology is where they disagree.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I kind of like that.
All right. So in talking of the Negan of it all, I just want to, for those that are kind of just getting back to it that didn't go through a rewatch, which I get it, that's 6 hours. It's a lot of time. We're all busy people. We talked about some names there. I just kind of want to bring back to you. So Negan is brought back to us at this time, and he has a little child with him by probably, I don't know, 11, 12, I think. 13, 15,
I would say at the oldest, maybe 13.
Okay. And this girl does not talk. At first, we don't exactly know why. Then we find out, Negan and she came upon her father as a walker. He was dead. She's been dumbstruck ever since. So Negan's taking care of her. When he agrees to go on this mission with Maggie to go get Herschel, the agreement is that he'll go with Maggie as long as the girl is protected at their community of the Bricks. Everything's great, but Homegirl is not really enjoying her time at the Bricks. So she leaves and goes to Manhattan, where Negan and Maggie are, to try and find him. And that's just kind of a little bit of backstory there, because I'm sure we're going to get into what happens from there. But
she paddles over in a cooler, by the way.
Yeah, and I just listened to that. You know what? If Jack can't fit on a door and we're all going to give James Crammon crap for 30 years for it, then sure, she can go in an igloo cooler. Why not? Maybe it was a Yeti. I don't know.
What was my reaction to that last season?
There's no way that's going to work because something's going to tip. You're not going to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were myth-bustering the hell out of that one.
Okay. I stand by my opinion of that from last year.
I should hope so.
Because I still, even watching that again this year, I'm like, even watching it again in the rewatch the other day, I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Right. All right. So you talked about the two halves of the face. So should we talk about the other half of the top billing?
Sure.
All right, Mr. Negan. A lot, as Ben alluded to, a lot of people have very strong negative feelings towards Negan. Ben, what's your relationship with Mr. Negan?
What do you mean by relationship with Mr. Negan?
I guess, so did you know of him in the comics before the show?
Yes.
Did you know what happened to Glenn through the comics before the show?
Yes.
Okay, so then...
I not only knew what happened in the comics, I own Walking Dead number 100, the debut of Negan.
So how has that... I guess here's why I'm asking that, is because when I came into The Walking Dead, it was like season 10. So I had known for years just through pop culture that Glenn died at the hands of Negan, even though I didn't really know what that meant. So when I got into The Walking Dead, like I never really formed that attachment with Glenn. I knew this was coming. And then I read the comics and like Negan, sadistic, hilarious. So I never really had that visceral reaction. And I'm just so surprised by people that read the comics and then watched the show and yet still hated Jeffrey Dean Morgan's Negan because of it. So I just want to talk to one of you. Like, what's that? What is that?
So I can't speak for anybody else, and I can't say like what their. I understand certain people. Kristen, for example. So Kristen is somebody you and I both know, my co-host from Revisited. She refuses to watch Dead City because she feels Negan is an absolutely deplorable character. Everything he has ever done, he deserves no redemption whatsoever. Doesn't matter what he does. He could literally sacrifice himself to save the world. It is not enough for redemption. I look at things a little differently. So first off, I was a fan of the Walking Dead comics. I had read the Walking Dead comics before the show even debuted. And when I heard we were getting a Walking Dead television series, I was super excited. I was like, if they stick to the source material, which hopefully they will because Kirkman is attached, this show is going to be fantastic. And season 1, not so much source material. And season 2, back on track, and now we're starting Herschel's farm, all of this stuff all along the way. And then I hear the news that Negan is coming into The Walking Dead. I'm like, okay, things are going to go to hell on this show. People are either, and I said this back then, I was like, people are either going to love this or absolutely hate this, because this is not a nice guy. But when it comes to television and film, I love villains. Love villains. The more deplorable, the better, if they're portrayed well. So I was like, okay, casting for Negan has to be good. And I heard a ton of rumors. The rumor mill was spreading like crazy. And before Jeffrey Dean Morgan was cast, John Hamm was attached.
He'd have been good, but he wouldn't have been JDM. But he would have been good.
And when John Hamm was attached, I was like, yeah, I can see that. Like, I'm excited about that. I hope that turns out to be true. And then the official announcement came out that it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I'm like, nope, that's better. I'm like, that's 100% absolutely better. Like,
I didn't know him beforehand, and now I know.
I knew him from Supernatural.
He's awesome. He's amazing in everything.
I knew him from Supernatural, and I was like totally stoked. I was like, yeah, like that's better. I was like, but again, people are going to love this or hate this. I knew in that season premiere with Glenn and Herschel, that was a surprise because that is not in the comics.
You mean Glenn and Abraham?
Abraham, sorry, not Herschel. Yeah, Glenn and Abraham. Thank you for the correction.
Although he was already alive longer than he should have been, because Denise took
he was
his
on
spot
borrowed time.
on the show. Correct. Yes,
he was on borrowed time.
Yes.
So it didn't bother me that Abraham was taken out at the same time because again, borrowed time.
Absolutely.
The more I got to see of Negan, And a lot of it became a departure from the comics. The further we got on, a lot of it was a departure of the comics, but it was still good television. I started to believe the more complex, again, I make the comparison to Ben Linus. Ben Linus was a horrible person.
Yes.
Absolute deplorable villain when we brought him in. And then you started finding out about his backstory, and it made his character so much more complex. And then you find out about Negan's backstory. You find out about Lucille. And then you start making comparisons like, okay, think about this. If Rick was in the same situation, Rick would have become Negan. Like, these are similar characters just from different environments.
And you got to remember, Rick did murder Gracie's dad at the Survivor outpost. And that happened. Like, no one's hands are clean in the apocalypse. Glenn himself killed two of the saviors by just jabbing the knife into their neck at the saviors outpost. Like, all is fair in love and war. Not really, but in this world.
There is a line that Negan says in season 1, in the premiere of season 1 of Dead City, when he says to Maggie, "How many fathers and husbands have you killed?" And it was at that moment, I was like, oh shit. Like, yeah,
someone's saying
there's truth to that.
And I gotta wonder, do you think some of the visceral reaction from the Walking Dead fans at large was that they had already juked us out with Glenn in the dumpster and had brought him back for all of 2 more episodes just to kill him off unceremoniously? And folks were really upset because they thought that they had already come to peace with the idea of Glenn being dead under the dumpster, and then they brought him back, like, oh, okay, just to give him that gruesome death that Steve, the character, the actor,
Stephen Yeun was excited for it.
He got it. He understood why, to quote Lost, he was a sacrifice that the island demanded. Like, it was what was needed for that time and that part of the story. Like, he was the sacrifice that Abraham wasn't going to blow the skirt up, but Glenn does.
I think part of it is, getting back to your question as to like why people are the way they are when it comes to Negan, they're that conflicted or they're that against, is, and I want to say this as gingerly as possible because I don't want to offend anybody when I say it, but people who have not read or are not familiar with the source material, it's easier for them to get attached to particular characters because it's still unknown to them what's going to happen. For someone like for people like us who have read the comics and were aware of Glenn's fate, we tend to not get as attached to that character. We still love Stephen Yeun and his portrayal of Glenn, but we're not getting as attached to Glenn because we know he's not for this world. Same thing with Abraham, same thing with Herschel, same thing with anybody. Glenn's death, I'm able to take it because I knew it was coming. I knew this was what was going to happen. I think some people who've never, like, again, if you're not familiar with the source material and you don't know about that, you allow yourself to get attached to that character so that when it does happen, you are devastated.
Yep. Not Charlie's boat. Or not Penny's boat.
Not Penny's boat.
Like,
exactly.
One of those moments that just hearing those 3 words strung together, not Penny's boat, there is a contingent of people listening to this show that just got a lump in their throat, remembering that image.
I took a screenshot, no lie, this was a couple years back. I took a screenshot of that, of Charlie holding his hand up, and I made it my Facebook cover image.
That's just wrong.
Right? I had so many people like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I was like, it's just a picture. Doesn't matter.
So, but I know that there's. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
No. And I was just going to say, like, getting back real quick, like, and I think that's why some people have a hard time forgiving Negan because it's almost like he actually brutally murdered someone in their own family.
Yes,
because they were that attached to the character,
and that makes perfect sense. And I absolutely respect that. And the things I always go back to is, in theory, the only reason Negan did that is because Rick's party struck first, and they killed several saviors between Daryl with the RPG and then the satellite outpost and all that stuff. Like, Rick's group had a pretty high body count at that point. But the other thing is, and I know a lot of people can't get past Negan's harem, and you know what? I got nothing. I got nothing for that either. Is just deplorable behavior. The only thing I can say is, Negan is clearly a man with dark impulses and a willingness to be ruthless and whatnot. But I feel like with what we got in the episode, Here's Negan, we learned that he was really a broken man that was trying to feel through hedonism and, masochistic behavior and bravado. And he was ruthless and he was evil and he was wrong. But me, and I love Kristen to death. She's one of my favorite humans. She reminds me of my big sister. She's the best. But me personally, I refuse to live in a world where I can't accept that someone can be saved, that someone can be redeemed, that with the right amount of contrition, with the right amount of positive actions after negative actions, that you can be redeemed, that there's still a path forward for someone. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing? So for me to just write Negan off, I won't do it, and I can't do it. Everyone, I think, has the opportunity to be saved. And Negan's done a lot of really good shit since that lineup. And
look at the finale of The Walking Dead when
absolutely,
he stood, when he stood up in front of everyone, was willing to sacrifice himself for people who literally locked him up and tortured him
because he knew that he
because of things that he did. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And also there's a contingent out there. Again, I've been listening to the Deadcast for years now. There's a contingent out there that likes to point out that he was willing to bash Carl's heads in. And yes, Carl's head, sure, he was a kid, but that was a kid that had gunned down many of his men already. That kid was a full-blown soldier, which is why Negan did not see him as a child. I do believe that Negan cares about kids. He just did not see Carl as a kid in that moment. Had to get on that soapbox for a hot second.
Well, no, and that's actually a really good point because it is kind of contradictory because there is a scene in Dead City Season 1, which we see a returning Stephen Ogg, which is great. And it's where you find out about the backstory of the Croat, where they say, kids is a line we do not cross.
Absolutely.
And there was a line that the Croat crossed.
Yes.
But I think you're right. I think Carl was different.
Carl was a soldier. Carl was a man. Carl was not a kid. Not by the time Negan met him. By the time Negan met him, he was a man.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, again, I'm with you that I don't think anybody is completely beyond redemption. I think anybody deserves the chance to be redeemed, to show that they have changed as a person. And Negan has done more than enough to do that. But we see, getting back to talking about Dead City Season 1, we see even more of that. We mentioned Ginny. He has taken up this girl and has become her guardian. He is protecting her. And he's doing so very well. The whole, keeping track of her dinosaur. The scene where he finds the dinosaur and the dinosaur has a tear in the stomach, and he takes out gauze and he wraps it up and seals it up and says, the surgery was successful, and he hands back to her. That's so sweet.
It, as a dad, like that's the stuff that matters. And like, if I can just real quick highlight the hilariousness of Negan seems to be a phenomenal parental figure to every kid he comes across in his life, whereas Maggie, for whatever reason, with her own flesh and blood child that she loves more than life itself, he hates her. And there is a difference between normal teenage angst and whatever the hell Herschel's going through. Like, the level of rude that he is to his mother, given the world that they've been in for all these years, I can't get past. Like, I can't stand Herschel.
That's a really good point. And I don't think that's anything we discussed last season. And it's kind of like, it makes Maggie and Negan kind of like a yin and a yang, in that there's a little bit of each of them within themselves. Because you're right, as bad of a person as Negan has been, he is a tremendous father figure. And he shows that with Ginny. But as good of a person as Maggie thinks she is, her mothering skills are not the best. Now, it could be argued that she is raising a son on her own because Glenn is not around. But Negan and Ginny are on their own completely. Maggie has people at the bricks to help.
And I'm sorry, but with the level of natural leadership and charisma that is available to Maggie, I'm a divorced dad. Raising kids solo is not easy, but I just I need more in season 2 backstory of how Maggie failed Herschel for him to be this upset with her all the time, it seems. Because even in the flashback before the Doma got her tentacles into Herschel, he was pretty disrespectful of her and pretty dismissive of whatever she had to say. And like, I need to know more of how that came to be, because everything that we know about Maggie, that doesn't track. I don't know. I don't buy that she wouldn't be a phenomenal mother.
I think we're going to get more of that in season 2. I mean, if you look at some of the trailers of season 2, there's definitely a lot of scenes of Maggie and Herschel together. So I think we're probably going to get more of why that came to be and why that is. So hopefully we'll get a better understanding of that as we go into that.
I hope so. Do you want to talk about some of the other characters that were introduced the first season that are
most of them did not make it into
we were talking
2?
about that, like, a lot of the folks they introduced died, so I was thinking we could start with the ones that actually have a chance of showing up in season 2.
So I mean, very clearly we're going to get Pearlie Armstrong is going to be returning. The Marshal from the mainland is going to be returning back to New York. I think his character became a little bit more interesting towards the end of the season. Excuse me. It took way too long.
It took to build way too long. And I see where they're going with it now. And I hope that just nerfing him for 4 out of 6 episodes in the first season was worth it, because I don't know if it was the actor's performance. I haven't really seen him in a lot. I didn't watch Friday Night Lights. But like, I don't know. He was not compelling. He was not intriguing. The way he traipsed through his dead brother's apartment didn't catch me. Like, Pearlie Armstrong, up until the last episode and a half, I could have done without. So now he seems to be the Marshal with a conscience heading back into the belly of the beast of New Babylon. So we'll see. But I was not impressed with season 1 Pearlie, and maybe that was the point.
Yeah, I mean, we get some cool moments with Pearlie, like when the Croat makes the one guy swallow the key, and then Pearlie has to kind of rip his stomach open to get it, and then take off his boot and, defeat some other zombies within a cage.
That was pretty gangster.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen they did a good enough job of letting us know that Pearlie is a badass. He's not a Marshal because for shits and giggles, like he's good at what he does. But it's not until we see him teamed up with Negan against his will that we kind of get more out of Pearlie. Yeah. And that happens, you're right, it happens way too late in the season that I want to like this character. So I'm really hoping we're going to get more dynamics from his character in the second season.
I think we are. And I think, and this is something, honestly, this is a dynamic I completely forgot until I just did this rewatch and they started setting it up. But so Pearlie goes back to New Babylon, which is a host of settlements in the New World. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things is they have a trio of walkers hanging outside of the entrance. And is it just me, or every time a community has walkers as like signposts, it's never a good community? It's never good people that do that, whether it be the Savior Outpost or Poe and his friends in season 11. It's never good to use walkers in that way.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the cool things that the show does in setting up in that last episode of season 1 is it sets up this whole thing where, the Croat and the Barazzi and the Dama and all these people are horrible, horrible people. And then you get to that final episode where you see Pearlie return to New Babylon, and it's the leader of New Babylon that's like, well, whoever, we want to know about the methane. And then it switches again back to the Dama talking about anytime there's new people that come in with new laws, the first thing they go after is the resources. It's like, well, okay, like, are the Barazzi as bad as we think they are, or are they just protecting what they've created? They're the ones that came up with the methane, the biodiesel, with using zombies as a power source, and New Babylon wants to come in and take it away. It now adds an interesting new dynamic in that who was the real villain and who was not. It's that Maggie Negan dynamic, is that they're both trying to accomplish something. It's just the matter of the way they go about doing it. New Babylon is probably not this great place that they, this new world order that they thought of. They're probably horrible people.
Well, and think about how they really introduce it. Pearlie is questioning the folks at the bar, using as much force as he wants, and eventually just straight up murders the bar owner by throwing her to a pack of walkers for aiding and abetting, even though she completely complied and did everything. And it's all because he was able to shroud himself in the law and says, well, the law says I can. And in this world, just, kind of like our own sometimes, the law is whatever the hell you say it is. And you can just enact it however you want. And I think that as Pearlie starts to peel back the onions and realize there's more complexity to things and realizes, oh, wait, hold on. We had a magistrate that was going around physically and assumingly sexually assaulting women and just expecting to get away with it. And we're actually trying to find their killer. Maybe that's not the group I want to be a part of, actually. Maybe that's not where I need to be. And I think he's going to become somewhat of a weird double agent. But the question is, if it's between New Babylon and the New York City Baratheon, is that just picking between, I don't know, Joffrey Baratheon and the Night King? Like, either way, it sucks. But you got to pick a side. I don't know which one's the right one there.
It's I don't know. I mean, and it makes me kind of pose this question to you. And I realize now we're kind of blending season 1 recap into season 2 predictions. And I think that's totally fine. I have a feeling that was probably how it was going to go anyway. We see by the end of the season that Negan is accepting the Dhamma and is starting to not necessarily accepting, but we see him going in that direction.
We see how he could be motivated to follow her request.
That's a better way to put it. Yes. And in the previews for season 2, we see that he is very clearly working with the Dhamma. He is working.
I've seen no previews. I've left myself completely blind, which is magical as hell.
So then I'm going to spoil 2 things
for you.
Go
for it. I don't mind.
One, he is side by side with the Croat again, naturally, in many scenes, and he is working with the Dhamma. Yep. He is in that church addressing all of the Barazzi. He has Lucille again.
So what you're saying is...
Nice. For listeners at home, Alex just pulled out Lucille.
Damn right I did. So he is in full Savior Negan style to us, the audience. That is what he is showing us, the audience.
I think it's a ruse.
Of course. That's my...
Yes.
Me too.
You mentioned the double agent with Pearlie. I think it's the same with Negan. I don't think Negan is going back to his ways, because I don't think he wants to. And I think even in that scene in the 2nd episode of season 2, when he literally guts and
knock.
The knock scene, which is one of the best scenes of the
entire season. So good. I loved it to pieces.
You can tell in that moment after he does it, he did what was necessary, but hated doing it. Mm-hmm. Just in the sense of having to turn and face Maggie afterwards. And it was instant regret.
And, it's so funny because Negan in a lot of ways reminds me sometimes, and man, I'm going to piss some people off here, but of Sandor Clegane, in that has the ability to be gruesome, can cut down the Squire boy Micah, but can also shuttle Arya across, the kingdom. Like, I think Sandor is a complex character to the level of Negan, of like, he's going to do what he's got to do to survive. And I definitely think if it weren't for the fact that he knows the Doma could go get Herschel at a moment's notice, he wouldn't be so easy to just slip into the character. I just wonder if maybe a part of him doesn't always hate the character.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and you talk about Herschel again as well, and we see by the end, you had mentioned we see even before, the Dhamma had like had her hooks in Herschel. He was a horrible person.
Oh my God,
to Maggie. Oh. But I have a feeling by the end, it is complete brainwash. I mean,
for sure.
We see Negan open a box with Herschel's toe in it.